I was just on a flight, and mid-flight, the guy in front of me started panicking because he thought he was having a heart attack. And he ended up being fine, but the flight attendant announced, "We have a medical emergency. Is there a doctor on board?" And the woman behind me stood up and yelled, "My husband's a chiropractor." I don't know if you've ever seen 200 people laugh hysterically while a man thinks he's dying. But it was incredible. Even the guy who thought he was having a heart attack was laughing his ass off. He's like, "Yeah, my heart's exploding. Come crack my back, please." Like, I bet if someone else stood up and was like, "Well, I once played Operation," he would be like, "Well, get the fuck in here, all right?" I was hanging out after a show recently, and I was talking to this girl from the crowd, and then out of the blue, she asked me where I went to college, and I said George Mason, and she put her thumb down in my face and just starts going, "Boo," which is a really strong reaction. And I was like, why are you doing this? And she goes, "I went to Florida." I was like, that means nothing at all, just so you know. There is no rivalry. Only thing I can think of is like half the news stories out of Florida are like, "Man eats his weight in snakes." So I'm like, this is just another Florida thing, all right? Just accept it. And then she goes, "We beat you in the Final Four?" I was like, ugh. First of all, neither of us played in that game, right? You know that, right? Also, that was like 12 years ago. Like, that's a historical event at this point. That would be like if every time I met a British guy, I was like, "Boo, boo." It's like, what's that for? The events of Braveheart, okay? I haven't even seen the movie, but I ran the reference by somebody. It checks out, all right? I antagonized her a little bit more. And then she got really like self-conscious about it. She's like, "Well, you know, Florida is known as the Harvard of the South." I was like, "No, it's not. No one has ever said that except you just now." Also, it's a weird way to brag. The Harvard of the South. Like, I'm from the South. And like, that's like saying, "Did you know that pizza rolls are the lobster of the frozen food section?" She was like, "Well, did you go to grad school anywhere?" And I got to lay it on her. I was like, "Yeah, I actually went to Harvard," which is not true at all. I just wanted to be able to say, or as we called it, the Florida of the North. Crimson Gators. One of my brothers is gay. He came out when he was 17. Meanwhile, starting when he was like 15, this is how he started dressing regularly. He was doing scoop neck shirts, optional chest glitter, very tight jeans, and furry women's boots for 2 years without officially being out of the closet. And we had to act like we had no idea. Like, it got to the point where anytime he started to speak, we were like, "This has to be it," right? Like, what else could be on his mind right now? Like, we would just be having dinner, and he'd be like, "Hey, Mom," and she'd be like, "We love you no matter what, okay?" And I have another brother who's, he's like a caricature of a pothead. Like, it's way too much. But he's still young enough, he doesn't understand it's better just to admit when you're high than it is for people to think you're a dumbass. He never comes clean about it, and he's always in a stupor. We watched this documentary about a blind guy who gets around using echolocation. Like, he ticks with his mouth, he can tell what his surroundings are based off the sound waves. And there's a scene where he's going down the street, and he's like, "Tick, tick, tick." He's like, "There's a trash can on the left, tick, tick, tick. Fire hydrant on the right, tick, tick, tick. Car on the left." And we're both amazed, but for different reasons. He turns to me and goes, "So, like, could he talk to dolphins then?" I'm like, why do you think it's an infomercial for Rosetta Stone dolphin? Or like, why did language enter your mind? And he was like, "Well, he's talking to trash cans, isn't he?" Like, no, he's not talking to trash cans. And I realized that's not even the dumbest thing he's implying. I'm like, hold on. So you also think dolphins can talk to trash cans? And at this point, I think I've got him right, but he was ready for it. He goes, "A lot of people throw trash in the ocean, so..." And you really can't argue with that. That wins every debate. I don't know if you've ever done Oxford debating or anything, but if someone throws this at you, you're fucking done for. I had this job in college doing door-to-door stuff, and half the company were college students, and the other half were ex-cons. like one day out of prison. And everybody's first day, you're always trying to get the read, figure out where they came from, right? So you look for obvious stuff like, tattoos is the most obvious. I'd be like, oh, teardrop tattoo, obviously an art student. I was very bad at this. And one day I'm driving, and this guy, Wayne, is in my passenger seat. And I was sure he was a college student. I was like, so, man, what'd you do before this? And he's like, man, I haven't worked in a minute. I was like, all right, what have you been doing? He was like, well, I was in the pen for 4 years. But because I saw him as a student, when he said the pen, instead of hearing penitentiary, my brain translated to University of Pennsylvania. And I was like, oh, shit, my uncle went there, too. I was like, what did you major in? And he goes, attempted murder. I was like, oh, shit, things have changed. My uncle was public policy. Really loosened up the curriculum at Penn, didn't they? I have the same name as a female porn star. It's awful for me. Like, her most famous movie is called The Ass is Half Full, which is not only clever, it's optimistic. So, when people try to contact her just guessing email addresses, and she doesn't publish her email address, so they just do Ryan Connor at every domain. Every few weeks, I receive fan mail that was intended for her, and what I do is respond back and forth as if I were her, until I feel like we're 2 to 3 emails away from me or her getting murdered. Right? So this is my favorite exchange ever. This is a Brazilian guy named Sergio. This is like 5 emails deep. He writes, I always wanted to get in touch with you, and now I found your email on the internet using the opportunity. So his English is not very Englishy right off the bat. I promise not to annoy you more when I do a short interview, because for me there is no porn star like you. I think you're beautiful in every way. And then he lists the ways, which is very unorthodox. Most people would go off the period. He's like, semicolon for you. Face, legs, buttocks. And buttocks is when you find out he's using a translator. Like that's not a colloquial term or like, if you go to Pornhub, it's like amateur buttocks, cum shots. Like it doesn't flow. Breast, height. Height's my favorite one. Because it's video. You have no idea how tall she is. Like, you're basically saying, hey girl, I love your height in proportion to the couch you get fucked on. Like, it's like, I don't know if you got long legs or a short couch. But like, the only way you would know her height is if she's got a movie where she's fucking somebody up against a 7-Eleven door. And here's the interview. He says, have you done a movie scene with a Brazilian author? If you did, what's his name? And he obviously meant actor, but I decided to answer him literally because that's significantly funnier. So I said, yes, Paulo Coelho, author of The Alchemist. Just baiting him, just pulling him in. He's like, okay, she's game for something. Next up, he asks, this is my favorite question, how much more the man who draws your attention? That's not a sentence, all right? You could study that for 5 years and you should be like, I don't know what you're looking for, man. Noun, verb, adjective, a triangle. So I responded with something even more confusing. I said, is many much more the man is the man who draws my attention is that man is the man. So I just want him to put that into a translator and just shuts the site down. Like you go to Google Translate the next day, it's like, sorry man, we got out of the translation game. We're doing finance now. Name change pending. You feel more pleasure with men of large penis, medium, or small? He's like, please say small. Like, why would you include that? Why would that be on the list? What woman, especially what porn star, would be like, after a hard day's work, I like to come home and take the tiniest thing I can find. Like, crackheads don't take Tylenol, you know what I mean? I said, I threw him a curveball though. I said, I'm not really a size girl. I have more of a texture fetish. I love penises that feel like corduroy. Because I want him to be at home just like, but how? How? Just trying to figure out how to work up a corduroy finish. It's like vertical or horizontal stripes, she didn't say. Going to fabric stores for solutions like Michael's or Miguel's or whatever it would be. As I stated, he's Brazilian. Okay. And finally, have you ever had sex with a fan of yours? I said, yes, I have, but it was one of those handheld fans you take to Six Flags in the summer. All right, thanks a lot, guys.